Saints versus Rams, 1 seed against 2 seed. It's the championship battle that many of us predicted even going back to last year's playoffs, and now it's finally here. While studying the Michael Thomas and Marcus Peters matchup from Week 9 for the original subject of this episode, which largely centered around their rematch, I came across a play that piqued my interest. A broken up shield screen down near the goal line that Peters jumped way faster than you would expect him to. It was almost like he knew it was coming, and a few minutes later I concluded that he actually did know it was coming. There was no other way he could possibly jump it that quickly without seeing that same play somewhere else on tape. And so from then on, I abandoned that original rematch topic and set out to chart every goal line and every short yardage play from the Saints this year so that I could see what Peters saw, and the results led me somewhere else entirely different than I expected: Sean Payton. Payton is a master of both scouting his opponents and himself every week, and he's not afraid to draw inspiration from around the league to give his team an edge when they need it the most. We've all known about Payton's genius for many years now, of course, but actually seeing the evolution of his play calling from week to week as I charted them was fascinating, and I really don't think he gets enough credit for how adaptable he is. So I want to take you through every instance of that shield screen call from the Saints this year, its development throughout the season, and how some inspiration from an unlikely source may have turned that play into the Saints' saving grace. We're going to start out in Week 2 against Cleveland, which was a very hard-fought game, believe it or not, and at this point the Saints were down by 9 about halfway through the fourth quarter. New Orleans is in second and goal on the 2-yard line, and they get a must-have touchdown on that same little shield screen to Michael Thomas. This was the first time they ran this play all year. It's from trips left on the wide side of the field, so everything is nice and spread out, and you can kind of see that Terrence Mitchell didn't even realize that the ball was being snapped at first. He was following the motion and expected Thomas to get set again, but by the time he realized what was happening, the ball was already in and out of Breeze's hands. Mitchell then had to try and catch up to Thomas to tackle him from behind before he could get those last 2 yards, which for anyone who has ever seen Michael Thomas play, you know that stopping him from getting 2 yards when he really wants them is easier said than done. So that was obviously a great play call for the situation, and one that Payton knew that he would go back to eventually in a gotta have it type scenario, and ironically the next gotta have it type scenario that came up was 7 weeks later against the Rams. This is that Peters breakup that we just saw earlier. It's a tie ball game, second and goal again from the 4-yard line, and the Saints are once again coming out in a trips left from 11 personnel. Or maybe it's 12 personnel, I guess it just kind of depends on whatever you classify Taysom Hill as when he's in the slot, but anyway. This time the ball is on the left hash instead of the right hash, so the formation is a little bit more condensed, but that doesn't stop Peters from still recognizing what is coming. He obviously studied the Saints' goal line passing plays very closely because as soon as Thomas started his motion from that wide split again, Peters was staring at Breeze and waiting for the ball. He wasn't just casually tracking his receiver like Mitchell was 2 months before, he was on it and ready to jump the screen as soon as it was in the air, and he wasn't the only one either. LaMarcus Joyner saw it coming too, and he was in a great position to make the tackle if Thomas got the ball, but Peters never even gave him a chance. 5 weeks later, Payton tried it again, but he added in a slight wrinkle this time to try to avoid tipping it off to the corner so he wouldn't jump it. Now Thomas started out in a narrower split so that he would not have to motion before the snap to get in position behind his blockers, which ideally would not give it away that the screen was coming, because without the motion, now it's just snap and go. However, because the Bucs were in zone coverage and not man coverage, Lavonte David did not have any particular receiver to account for off the snap, which would have drawn his attention away from Thomas if he were in that man coverage. All he had to do was listen for Breeze cadence and then check Thomas with his eyes to read if they were still going to try that screen from trips left, which obviously they did, and from there he just knifed through that lead block from a slot receiver and made first contact to stop it short. If Tampa were in man coverage, this play probably would have been successful because Thomas was not David's responsibility in man, but because he was in zone, he had the freedom to check it first and then make the hit. All told, the Saints ran variations of this same play 3 times at the goal line throughout the regular season, but they were only successful on their first try. After they showed it once against Cleveland, defenses wised up and committed to stopping it every time they saw trips left down inside the 5-yard line, regardless of whatever the personnel package was. So what could Sean Payton do? How could he take a dead play and give it life again when every defense he faced was looking for it before the ball was even snapped? The answer, believe it or not, came from the Eagles, who unsuccessfully ran a wrinkle of this same play against Houston in Week 16. And the only reason why that wrinkle didn't work is because the Texans were in zone coverage and the flat corner did a great job of not getting sucked in too hard by the fake. Payton has talked before about how he watches the Eagles offense every week, so this incompletion basically inspired him to go back to the drawing board on his own play because he knew that the play that Doug Peterson called against Houston would have worked if the Texans were in man coverage. But more importantly, he knew that Peterson's own defense in Philadelphia really likes running man coverage in short yardage situations. Payton knew that if the Eagles gave him a man coverage look on the 2-yard line from trips left on the wide side of the field, those corners would be thinking screen all the way. And because it's man, they would probably bite really hard on it. It's the same alignment and the same spot on the field and the same personnel package that the Eagles have been studying from the Saints all season long, and you can even see this slot corner, Cre'Von LeBlanc, was not thinking twice about his role on this play. Look at how fast he jumped this. LeBlanc had zero doubt in his mind that he was about to get a really sneaky interception in front of Thomas. The alignment was there, the motion was there, everything was perfect, except for the fact that it wasn't a screen. Breeze pump fake to Thomas to draw the corners down even more, and Keith Kirkwood just slipped out the back door for a fade to the corner, just like the Eagles drew it up themselves a few weeks earlier. I know on TV it looked like a broken coverage that gave up an easy touchdown, but to be honest, this was really just phenomenal execution on a play that was 17 weeks in the making. New Orleans was down by 2 touchdowns at this point. It was 4th and goal, and if they didn't convert on this play, their playoff run might have been over before it even began. They needed this touchdown more than any other touchdown the whole season, and so when it really mattered, Sean Payton dialed up a play that had been a whole season in the making. If you want to know what great coaches do during their bye weeks in the playoffs and why coaches like Payton, Belichick, and Reed are always so dominant after those bye weeks, this is it. The ability to study themselves, study their opponents, and learn how they can use their opponents' ideas against them, that's what defines a Hall of Fame caliber coach, and that's why Payton is one of the best to have ever done it. As we get deeper into January, when every team is great and deserving to be there, and every roster is full of talent, it's the coaches that often make the true differences in these games. Do you have a coaching staff that sits in soft zone coverage all day against the greatest quarterback of all time? Or do you have a coach with the guts to steal a play from someone and then knock them out of the playoffs with it? Creativity and aggressiveness are what Super Bowl rings are made of. And as we get ready to watch the conference championship games this weekend, I think all 4 of the coaches that we have left are some of the most creative and aggressive minds in the business. They all know what's at stake this Sunday, and they've all studied their asses off on how to beat each other. But most importantly of all, like Sean Payton showed last weekend, they all know that sometimes to beat the best, you have to steal from the best. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode, and thank you to all of you for supporting not only me, but also our season-long sponsor, MyBookie. You guys have taken care of both of us really well this year. It's been a great partnership, a great little community we built, and a lot of you guys have taken advantage of their awesome sign-up offer that's been going the whole season, and it's still going on right now, too. If you guys want to take advantage of it for the conference championship games, or the Super Bowl, or maybe some other sports, whether it's baseball coming up in the spring, or basketball, or hockey, or esports, combat sports. I mean, you guys name it, they've got everything. So if you guys want to take advantage of that and get that huge 50% sign-up bonus with promo code Brett, head down to that link in the description below. And again, enter that promo code Brett. You get a big-ass bonus for your deposit. It's a really great offer. You guys have done a phenomenal job supporting both of us throughout this whole season. Hopefully you guys have won a lot of money. I certainly had a little bit of a rough go of it during the divisional round last week, but hopefully we can bounce back this week and kind of hit 2-0 on these picks and then nail the Super Bowl. So again, thank you all for supporting us, and I will be back next week with another Film Room episode and of course more picks, but they're going to be Super Bowl related. So until then, I'll see you later.